At 71 degrees Celsius, the human body doesn't just struggle, it begins to fail in silence. Skin can freeze in seconds, nerves dulling before pain even registers. Each breath turns fragile, crystallizing in the air before it fully leaves the lungs. Metal becomes brittle, fuel thickens and dies, and even the most advanced machines hesitate, then stop. This is a level of cold where nature doesn't test you. It erases you. And yet, long before insulated jackets, GPS signals, or forged steel tools, entire Native American communities stood within this frozen world and endured. More than that, they lived. They raised children in landscapes that could kill in moments. They built cultures shaped not by comfort, but by precision. They hunted across endless white horizons, adapted to shifting ice and wind, and found ways not just to survive, but to thrive. This is not simply a story of endurance. It is a story of intelligence refined over generations, of design born from observation, of a deep, almost forgotten understanding of the natural world. One that modern survival, despite all its technology, is still trying to rediscover. For generations, history labeled these people with a single word: primitive. A word that simplifies and misunderstands. Because there is nothing primitive about surviving 71 degrees Celsius. Nothing accidental, nothing careless. At that level, survival is not luck. It is engineering precise, intentional, and unforgiving. Every choice carried consequence. Where to build meant reading the land-wind direction, snow density, hidden shelter. What to wear meant controlling heat, managing moisture, and turning natural materials into life-preserving systems. How to move was a balance between energy and exposure, where one wrong step could trigger exhaustion or freezing sweat. When to hunt required timing, patience, and deep awareness of both animals and weather. Even how to breathe became deliberate, slow, controlled, adapted to air that could burn as easily as it could sustain. None of this was random. These were systems refined across generations, shaped by observation, memory, and lived experience. Knowledge passed through action, not theory, through survival, not assumption. The cold was never something to fight. It was something to understand, to study, to respect, and ultimately, to live within. In extreme cold, clothing is not a choice, it is life support. There is no separation between what you wear and whether you survive. For northern Native American groups, every layer was designed with intention. Not for appearance, but for function. Not for comfort alone, but for survival. Animal hides and fur were not used randomly. Each material carried a specific role within a larger system. Caribou fur, for example, was more than warm. It was engineered by nature itself. Each individual hair is hollow, trapping microscopic pockets of air. That air becomes insulation, holding body heat in a way modern synthetic fabrics still struggle to match. But material alone was not enough. It was how those materials were layered that made the difference. Inner layers were designed to manage moisture, pulling sweat away from the skin before it could freeze. Outer layers acted as shields, trapping heat while blocking wind and exposure. Fur could be turned inward to maximize warmth, or outward to deflect cold air and snow, depending on conditions and movement. Even the smallest details mattered. Stitching was minimized. Seams were carefully placed to reduce heat loss and prevent cold air from penetrating the system. What they created was not just clothing. It was a fully integrated thermal system, mobile, adaptive, and precise. A second skin, built not in factories, but through generations of observation, testing, and survival. Most people believe fire is the ultimate defense against the cold. A simple solution, a universal answer. But at 71 degrees Celsius, fire becomes fragile, unreliable, temporary. fuel is limited in frozen landscapes where trees are scarce or buried. Wind doesn't just blow. It cuts, scatters heat, and devours flame in seconds. And exposure moves faster than fire can respond, faster than warmth can build. In that kind of cold, relying on fire alone is not survival. It's a risk. So instead of depending on something that could fail, they turned to something constant: the environment itself. They didn't try to overpower the cold. They learned how to reshape it. Snow, what most people see as the enemy, became a tool, a resource, even a form of protection, because snow is not solid ice. It holds air, traps it, slows the movement of heat. And when shaped with intention, it becomes insulation. Walls built from compacted snow could block the wind completely. Dome structures could capture and preserve body heat. Inside, the temperature could rise dramatically compared to the deadly cold outside. What looks like emptiness became shelter. What feels like danger became defense. This wasn't just survival. It was a shift in perspective, an understanding that in the harshest environments on Earth, the difference between life and death isn't always what you bring with you, but how well you understand what's already there. To most people, snow is a symbol of cold, a warning, a barrier, something to escape from. But in the far north, snow became something else entirely. Not the enemy, but the solution. Because snow, despite its appearance, is not solid ice. It is filled with tiny pockets of trapped air, and that air slows the movement of heat. In the right hands, snow becomes insulation. Structures built from packed snow, carefully cut, shaped, and placed, could transform a deadly environment into a controlled space. Domed shelters rose from the frozen ground, not as crude piles, but as precise forms designed to work with physics, not against it. Inside, something remarkable happened. Body heat, even from a single person, could be captured and held. Wind, once relentless and cutting, was blocked entirely. Temperatures inside could rise dramatically compared to the outside, sometimes by dozens of degrees. These shelters were never random. Every curve, every angle, every block had purpose. The rounded dome helped redirect wind, allowing it to flow over the structure rather than tear against it. The walls held heat in, while maintaining strength against collapse. Even the entrance was engineered with intent. Lower than the main sleeping area, it acted as a cold trap, allowing dense, freezing air to sink away from the body, keeping the living space warmer, more stable. This was not just shelter. It was thermal engineering, built not with machines or modern materials, but with an intimate understanding of the environment itself. A reminder that sometimes the harshest elements hold the key to survival. Standing still in extreme cold is dangerous. The body slows, heat drains, and stillness becomes a quiet threat. But movement done wrong can be even more deadly. Because in 71 degrees Celsius, the greatest danger is not just the cold, it's moisture. Too much movement generates heat too quickly. The body begins to sweat. And in these conditions, sweat is not relief, it is a countdown. Moisture seeps into layers, clings to the skin, and then freezes. What once helped regulate temperature becomes a conductor of cold, pulling heat away from the body faster than the environment alone ever could. In extreme cold, you don't just avoid freezing, you avoid sweating. So movement became something else entirely. Not rushed, not careless, controlled, deliberate, efficient. Hunters didn't charge across the landscape. They moved with precision-measured steps, steady pacing, never fast enough to overheat, never slow enough to lose warmth. They paused with intention. Rest wasn't collapse, it was strategy. Moments chosen carefully to stabilize the body, to adjust layers, to maintain balance between heat and exposure. At every step, there was awareness, not just of the land, but of the body itself. Breathing, temperature, subtle changes that signaled danger before it arrived. Energy was never wasted. Every movement served a purpose. Every decision protected heat without inviting moisture. Because in that kind of cold, survival isn't about moving more. It's about moving right. In extreme cold, food is no longer just nutrition. It becomes heat fuel for survival at the most basic level. Because in temperatures like 71 degrees Celsius, the body is constantly burning energy, not for movement alone, but simply to stay alive, to keep the heart beating, to keep the core warm. And in that environment, not all calories are equal. High-fat diets became essential. Fat burns slowly, releasing energy over time, creating a steady, internal source of warmth the body can rely on. Animals like seal, whale, and caribou were not just hunted for sustenance. They were vital sources of dense, efficient energy, food that could be transformed directly into heat, endurance, and resilience. Meals were never about taste. They were about survival. Every bite had a purpose. To maintain core temperature in a world that constantly tried to take it away, to support long journeys across frozen terrain, to prevent the body from weakening under relentless cold. Because when energy runs out, heat follows. And in those conditions, starvation is not a slow decline. It is immediate. It means the body begins to cool from within, losing the ability to generate warmth, to think clearly, to move effectively. It means freezing, not from the outside in, but from the inside out. Extreme cold doesn't stop at the body. It reaches deeper into the mind. Silence stretches across the landscape, unbroken and absolute. Endless white horizons erase distance, direction, even time itself. Isolation settles in, quiet but relentless. In these conditions, strength alone is not enough. Even the most capable individuals can begin to unravel. Not from weakness, but from the weight of emptiness, of exposure, of being alone against something so vast. But they were never alone. Native American communities survived because survival was never an individual act. It was shared, built together, protected together. Knowledge moved through generations like a living system. Not written in books, but spoken, demonstrated, remembered. Elders carried experience shaped by decades of survival, passing it down through stories. Stories that taught when to move, where to build, how to endure. Responsibilities were divided with purpose. Each person had a role, a function within the whole. No energy wasted. No effort isolated. This created something modern survival often forgets. A system of collective intelligence. A network of awareness, skill, and memory stronger than any single individual. Because in that kind of cold, survival is not about standing alone. It's about standing together, where knowledge is shared, burdens are carried, and no one faces the silence or the cold by themselves. To survive in these conditions, the land could not be ignored. It had to be understood, as if it were speaking. Every surface, every movement, every subtle change carried meaning. Snow was never just snow. Its shape, its texture, the way it drifted or hardened, it revealed the direction of the wind, the force behind it, and the patterns that could either protect or expose. Tracks across the frozen ground told stories. Animal movements, migration paths, the presence of life in an otherwise silent world. They revealed where to hunt, where to follow, and where to stay away. Even the sky was a signal. Shifts in light, cloud formations, the tone of the horizon. all of it hinted at what was coming next.
Watch the snow.
Storms
Walk
didn't
softly.
arrive without
Save your
warning,
feet.
but only to those who knew how to see it. This wasn't instinct. It was observation learned, practiced, refined over generations. A skill shaped by necessity, sharpened by consequence. Over time, people developed the ability to read their surroundings with a level of precision that modern tools, despite their complexity, still struggle to match. Because in 71 degrees Celsius, there is no room for error. A wrong decision is not something you recover from. It doesn't give you a second chance. It doesn't become a lesson for later. It becomes the last one you ever make. Today, we depend on layers of technology to face the cold. Synthetic insulation engineered in labs, satellite forecasts tracking storms from space, shelters designed with precision materials and modern tools. We have built systems that protect us, systems we trust without question. And yet, remove them. Take away the insulated gear, the data, the structure, the safety net, and most people would not last a single night. In the kind of cold these environments hold, not because they are weak, but because they are disconnected from the patterns of the land, from the signals of the sky, from the quiet knowledge that once guided every decision. And yet, they survived. Not for a moment, not by chance, but across generations. Not because they were stronger than the cold, not because they were protected by luck, but because they understood something we've slowly forgotten. Survival is not a battle to be won. It is not about forcing nature to submit. It is about learning its rhythm, reading its signals,
See the pattern here?
moving with it instead of against it. Because in the harshest environments on Earth, the ones who survive are not the ones who resist nature the hardest, but the ones who learn how to belong within it. So the next time you feel the cold,
Every breath
ask
is
yourself,
precious heat.
was it ever meant to be conquered? Or was it always meant to be understood? Because long before modern survival gear, long before technology, humans didn't fight the cold. They became part of it. If this story changed the way you see survival, where the past isn't just history, it's a blueprint humanity is still trying to remember.